Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to talk to you about the latest release from our Control Keypad product family. It is called KD-WP8-3. And so perhaps you're already familiar with KD-WP8 and then KD-WP8-2, you guessed it, to follow. These products have been extremely popular because it adds a modern update to a classic solution. Something that people want is that physical button panel. Believe it or not, we find that people want to have a control keypad, a tactile button remote for their classrooms, for their conference rooms, for their auditoriums, for example. And that's what these keypads have been. A sturdy, robust offering. But the modern aspect is that they send all of their communication over the network. Okay, so it lives on the network. It has, and additionally, it has an IR and an RS-232 port. It's PoE powered, so you don't even have to have a power supply connected to it. You can add more IR and RS-232 ports by integrating it with our CX800 or MC1000. For those classrooms, 2 buttons. You could create a combo, press and hold 2 buttons to lock and unlock the keypad, right? So that if the class clown wants to come and press a button to turn off the projector, nothing can happen without knowing that key combo. There's an open API, which the folks at QSYS have used. More on that in just a moment. Virtual keypad. So again, modern updates to the classic product category. You see the very modern look and feel to that. That's thanks to 175 button sheet icon that we include in the box with it. And you can even create your own. We have a PowerPoint template online. We tell you exactly which Google font we're using. And this you could just fit it into the outlines that we have. And when it prints on your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, just cut it out and put it right in between the ice cap and the white backing. You can program these things to have events on the button press, on the button release, or press and hold to send, like continuously sending volume control, or hold to send, or hold for repeat versus hold to send. Hold to send is like, say you want to hold the power button for 5 seconds before it actually turns off the projector. So with all of those events possible, it brings us to 160 potential events with this. That's 20 per each of the 8 buttons. And brand new with the WP8-3 is integer variable support and telnet communication control support. More on that here shortly. As I mentioned, our partners at QSYS have created a fabulous plugin for the KD-WP8-3, and they saw exactly what I've said, which is this is a good solution for when the end user is looking for something that is a physical button interface. And that's what we're offering here. You can download it from the QSYS designer. And from what I'm told is it's just a simple matter of connecting the pins in your programming. In the QSYS side, you can do all of the programming in QSYS. All you have to do is set up the IP address of the KD-WP8-3 during the initial setup process on our side. Then after that, it's exclusively QSYS, or you could also program it in the KD-WP8-3 side as well, which we're about to show you how that is done in just a moment. As I mentioned, KD-WP8-3 lives on the network. Does that mean it has to be a part of a huge network or small network? Well, it's really up to you. Here we see an example of the KD-WP8-3 connected into a network switch with PoE. That's all it needs to get power, right? And now we could send control to your IP-controlled projector, switchers, DSP, lighting systems, and more. But as I also mentioned, we have one IR and one RS-232 port native on the back of the WP8-3. So if you have a display with IR control and amplifier with RS-232 in your huddle room, this becomes a perfect solution. You can add more of our master control hardware. We have a variety of hardware options out there that you could utilize that will give you anywhere from 3 to 7 ports of IR RS-232, and even voltage triggering, and they all just live on the network. So the WP8-3 will send the necessary commands to those devices, telling them to execute their IR or RS-232 commands through the device. Then what about those applications that maybe the network's just a little too sophisticated? People there don't want you on it, for example. Not a problem. With a PoE injector, you could go directly from the WP8-3 to the device you're controlling, or using our master controllers. And remember, we have one IR and one RS-232 port built in. So how is the keypad configured? Let's just take a quick walkthrough. It's all done through our web UI. So you get it on your network, and you set it up with the KeyDigital management software. Now it's on your network, and you go ahead and type in the IP address in your web browser, where you enter the web UI. We're not going to go through every single thing here, but just the stuff that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like to program it. And one of those things is the button settings. In addition to naming the button, just so you, the programmer, know what to do on each button, but also for a virtual keypad, as we mentioned before, and as you will see soon, give the button a name. Is it a normal button, meaning I just press it and the event happens, or is it a toggle button, meaning that a set of events happens on the first press and a second set of events happens on the second button press? For LED coloring, we have red, blue, or off, meaning no color options. A hold event, as I mentioned before, hold for repeat or hold for send. And a release event. For example, we could even make the LEDs control each other. So for example, if I'm turning on the projector and I also have an off button, on my button send, on my button press, I'll send the command to turn on the projector. On the release, I might send the command for button 1 to stay illuminated, button 2 to go to the off illumination of the LED, right? On button 2, turning the projector off on the press, but on the release, meaning when I lift my finger, now I'm going to send button 1 LED off, button 2 stays illuminated. That's just one example of the button release when that comes in handy. One of the most popular events you're going to program is IP command, because you're sending devices to all over the network now. We have TCP, UDP, and also Telnet support from the dropdown of the IP dropdown menu. We have string and hex format supported there. And then it's just a matter of entering the IP address of the device you're controlling and entering the command of that unit you are wishing to control. What about IR? If you want to send an IR command through the built-in IR port, we see it through the event type, built-in IR. And then you could choose from Pronto Hex or Compass IR library. Here's an example of Pronto Hex. Now, a lot of manufacturers, if this is a professional piece of equipment, they'll be able to supply you with just a Word document or PDF that you copy and paste that long form hex, and you paste it into the data cell. And press the button and it'll send that command. How about sending IR through one of the KeyDigital master controllers? You choose that as the event, IR from a KDCX or IP922 or KDMC1000. They all communicate over TCP. You enter the IP address of the KeyDigital master controller device, and then you specify the IR format, whether Pronto Hex or Compass IR. Now, what does Compass IR look like? Well, if you have our Compass control managers, which you can download for free, we have an IR manager, RS-232 manager, and TCP IP manager. We're going to show you where you could grab that in just a moment. Then we actually have, with these free downloads, over 200,000 devices that we have codes for. Now, these codes are not the exact same format as the Pronto Hex. They are unique. So that's why it's a different data type selection, where you enter the IR frequency, 38,000, or 38 kilohertz, in other words, and then you copy and paste from the IR burst data cell in the IR manager into the data cell of the KD-WP8-3 programming web UI. Similarly, for RS-232, we have the RS-232 manager, and many of you are already familiar with RS-232 commands. Often they're the same as the IP commands, except for you have a baud rate selection. So it's just choosing, I'm sending this RS-232 command through the built-in RS-232 port, or perhaps through an RS-232 port of our MC1000, KDCX, or one of our AV over IP encoder decoders with the built-in master controller, as you saw before, in which case, again, the IP address is the IP address of the KeyDigital master controller. And here's an example of if it's an RS device that we don't have the command set for, often you're just going to refer to the manual or programming document. And don't forget these little red question marks here that we see. These are all tooltips, right? When you hover over them, it will show you some valuable information. If you had a question about, okay, how do I enter hex data? For example, we see it over here, 92H03H000000, but to enter that correctly in the keypad looks like 92, 03000000. And that's how we want to enter that in the, or that's how we need to enter that. So if you have any questions like that, oftentimes you could find the answer over the tooltip there. Now, how do you download those managers of databases? It's on the KD-WP8-3 product page under the Resources tab. After entering all the events and commands into your each button, it comes time to export the project. Exporting is just going to create a program file that's like a backup file on your computer, and loading is still necessary. Of course, you have to load that into the keypad. It's a very quick process. You see it goes through loading the keypad 1 through 16 all the way to 16 through 16, and then success. After you loaded the keypad, of course, you could walk over to the keypad, start pressing buttons and see what works, or you may find our virtual keypad to be more useful. The virtual keypad will actually give you a log of each and every event that's executed, and it'll tell you what was done successfully, or in the case of an error, it'll tell you what has failed, and it'll tell you why it failed, in fact. It's very useful. Now, you might think that's very useful, but I don't want my end user to see that. Not to worry. We also have a user keypad. It's simply, it's accessed by simply entering the IP address of the keypad /user.html. And then they must enter a password to enter that page. Think about this for classrooms. The teacher leaves the classroom. They're almost all the way out of the school building, and they think, oh, did I turn off the projector or not? Well, they can simply have the user keypad bookmarked in their phone or iPad on any device. It doesn't have to be Android or iOS. It could be a computer or another tablet, for example, and they can then see the status of the room via the button states, and they can control the room as well. Now, those new features for the WP8-3, the first one is integer variables being supported. So imagine you have a device, many of you have worked with these devices before, where let's say it's an amplifier, that instead of supporting up or down volume command, you need to send a discrete numerical value, whether the range be 00 through 99 or -60 to +12, for example. There's many devices like that out there. And that's just one example of when you want to use a variable. Now with KD-WP8-3, up to 8 variables are pre-built into the keypad, where you could give a desired name or leave it alone as is, a desired minimum value and a maximum value from -65535 to +65535. And then you could even view the current value of that variable in the web UI, all in the buttons and variables submenu. Once you create those variables, establish their parameters, here's how you will call those variables. You will choose a variable control event type, select the variable that you want to control, to manipulate the value of. You will choose to set it up, down, or to set, meaning you wanted to enter a numerical value yourself. And then to reference the new value of the variable, it's got to be the next event, right? Or an event below the setting of the variable. We could reference it in a command just simply by using #D and then the number being 1 through 8, aka the variable 1 through 8 from this table as I step back here. The other new feature is Telnet IP control. We've had a lot of partners of ours who are DSP manufacturers, for example, who use Telnet. Telnet is control over IP. If you're not familiar with it, it's a little more secure. You connect to the device, but then you have to authenticate the device with the username and password. The device has to allow you in past that user authentication to then be able to control it. So you're going to have a username and password, most likely. Sometimes that you could even disable that. But then when the device does allow you in, it gives you a welcome message. Maybe it says, welcome, please send command. And that's what we're showing here with that welcome message. And you match it case sensitive. Now the keypad knows, okay, I've made the connection. I've received that welcome message, that response. Now I'm free to go ahead and send that first command. The nice thing is here, that connection is maintained with the Telnet device, unless you had another Telnet device that you were controlling in the same system. Each time it jumps to the new Telnet device, it will have to create that connection once again. So in other words, a maximum of 1 Telnet connection can be maintained at a time. So one of the most popular applications that that we've noticed the trend of through this 3 generations of keypads now is controlling the keypad, sending commands to projectors which support PJ-Link control. If you're not familiar with PJ-Link, it is a unified standard for operating and controlling projectors. In other words, instead of all these manufacturers having their own command protocol, what this command looks like for this brand, the commands look like for that brand. Sometimes it's text, sometimes it's ASCII, etc. This is a generic protocol. They're all responding to the same commands. So they often will also have their own communication protocols, but they support PJ-Link in addition. That's huge. That's absolutely huge because it's thousands of compatible projector models across all the major brands. And so that creates a solution with huge customer potential. So just think about those applications, those customers that are looking for, once again, that physical button interface. How often do you hear the projector remote keeps walking away in these kind of applications? So what we've done at KeyDigital to respond to that and make that easier for our partners to provide those solutions is we've created 3 program files that you could download for free. And we've also created a presentation on this solution that looks quite nice, I hope you think. And the keypad, the button programs, the pre-programmed files, I should say, they look like this. Button 1 is on, 2 is off. You have HDMI 1 and 2 selection. You have volume plus and minus. You have an audio mute and a video mute. And of course, after you download this, you can edit those files as needed. We even have a how-to guide on how to load this, how to edit it as needed, etc. As you can see here under the resources tab on the product page. What are these 3 program files? Project A is a keypad and a PJ-Link projector only. So all 8 of those buttons go exclusively to the projector. Project B adds KeyDigital's KD-WP8-3-8 to the mix. So the volume controls and the audio mute controls go to the amplifier, where the switching, HDMI switching, and the video mute goes to the projector. On and off, of course, goes to both devices. And then Project C adds a KeyDigital switcher, because all of our switchers support the same switching commands, same switching protocol. This could be our UCC series or our Pro series HDMI switch with IP control. Now that switcher receives the commands for the HDMI switching. So those are just scratching the surface, but of course, as I mentioned, the most popular applications integrating the keypad with the PJ-Link projector. And So that's very popular for a lecture hall, for example. Here's a lecture hall where we can have a mic plugged in at the podium, and that plugs into the amplifier. That amplifier can be a preamp to go to a larger 70-volt system if needed. We have an HD-based wall plate that can plug into this presentation switcher. We have our own KeyDigital's wireless presentation system for presenting wirelessly as an alternative to a wired solution. We could integrate this into conference rooms as well with our UPS52U, where now we utilize presentation switchers, which can send USB signal backward to the presenting computer. So the presenter comes in and presents, plugs in the USB display port or USB-C display port or HDMI from their laptop. They additionally connect the USB 2.0 connection to receive the camera and the audio system from a audio conferencing system. We also have a ballroom system. Here, for example, we have two rooms that could be combined into one large room, and we have KeyDigital single gang wall plates. That's what I'm trying to say. KD-XWPS, we have those single gang plates with HDMI and USB-C. So it's like a 2x1 wall plate transmitter switcher. We have those feeding our matrix ultimately. We additionally have a wireless presentation option, and each room has our keypads for controlling. How about the look of a system that has been installed? Here we see KD-WP8-3 with custom buttons made by the integrator. This is for a surgery center where they do different camera routes to the monitors in the room, and those are what the surgeons are using to perform their invasive surgeries. So you can see many applications there are possible. And if you'd like to talk to our sales team about your upcoming application, please shoot us a note, sales@keydigital.com. That's all for today. We appreciate you viewing.